"You'll embarrass us. Don't come." That was my son's wedding day text to me. The bride's father called instead. "I need you here, James." I walked into the reception. My son's face went pale. The bride's father rose from his seat. "Everyone, I'd like to introduce the man who—" Hold on, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell this story from the beginning. My son told people I was dead. Not metaphorically. Not in some dramatic, "I'm cutting you off" kind of way. He literally told his future in-laws, his fiancée, her family, their friends, everyone, that his father had passed away years ago. I found out by accident, the way you find out most things that destroy you. A Google search. I was looking up Tyler's engagement announcement because he hadn't called me, hadn't invited me, hadn't even sent a text saying, "Hey Dad, I'm getting married." I saw it in a Chicago lifestyle blog. Some glossy thing about young professionals and their fairy tale love stories. Tyler Kowalski, son of the late James Kowalski of Duluth, Minnesota. The late James Kowalski. I read it 3 times. Then I put my phone down and sat in my kitchen for about 45 minutes, staring at the coffee maker like it owed me an explanation. I was 58 years old, very much alive, and apparently already buried. I want to be clear about something before I go any further. I am not a perfect man. I never claimed to be. I'm a retired iron worker from Duluth. I've got a bad shoulder, a 2009 Ford pickup that has no business still running, and a retirement income that wouldn't impress anybody at a Chicago cocktail party. I know what I am. I know what I'm not. But I raised that boy alone. His mother, Carol, died when Tyler was 7. Ovarian cancer. She fought it for 2 years and lost. And when she left, she took most of the color out of the world with her. I won't pretend those years after were pretty. I was grieving, exhausted, working doubles at the taconite plant, and trying to raise a child who cried himself to sleep, asking why mommy wasn't coming back. I didn't have answers. I just had showing up. So I showed up. Every single day. School lunches, parent-teacher conferences, terrible little league games, where Tyler struck out every single time, but still looked up at me in the bleachers like I was the only audience that mattered. I drove him to college orientation in that same beat-up truck, helped him carry boxes into his dorm, stood in the parking lot, watching him walk away, and thought, "Carol, look at him. We did something right." That was 11 years ago. The calls got shorter after freshman year. The visits got less frequent after sophomore year. By the time Tyler graduated from Northwestern and landed a job at a consulting firm in Chicago, he was a different person. Sharper edges, careful words, a new laugh that didn't sound like the kid I raised. I told myself it was growth. I told myself city life changes people. I told myself a lot of things standing at Carol's grave on Sunday mornings, filling her in on a son who barely returned my calls. I should have listened to the silence better. Tyler met Chelsea Whitmore at some rooftop fundraiser in Chicago's Gold Coast neighborhood. She was beautiful and kind, and came from exactly the kind of family Tyler had apparently decided he deserved. Her father, Gordon Whitmore, was a real estate developer, old money, new polish, the kind of man whose name appeared on building facades and charity galas. I knew none of this firsthand. I pieced it together from Tyler's Instagram, which I followed anonymously because he had blocked my main account. I'm not even ashamed to admit that. When your kid stops talking to you, you find ways to make sure he's still breathing. He looked happy in the photos. That part hurt more than the blocking. The engagement happened in April. The wedding was set for early June in Chicago. I waited for an invitation that never came. I called Tyler in May, twice. Voicemail both times. I texted. Short, careful texts. Nothing confrontational. Just, "Tyler, I'd love to talk. I heard about the wedding. I'd really like to be there." Silence. Then 3 days before the wedding, my phone buzzed. A text from Tyler. I actually smiled when I saw his name. I thought, finally. Finally, he's calling me back. Finally, we're going to talk like human beings. I opened it. You'll embarrass us. Don't come. You don't fit this world. Mom would understand. I read that last sentence probably 6 times. Mom would understand. He used Carol. He took her memory and sharpened it into something and pointed it directly at my chest. The woman I held while she died. The woman I've brought sunflowers to every single Sunday for 20 years at a cemetery on the west side of Duluth. Mom would understand. I put the phone face down on the kitchen table and walked outside. It was late May in Minnesota, still cold enough that your breath made little clouds. I stood on my porch in the dark for a long time. Lake Superior was somewhere out there beyond the tree line, making that low sound it makes when the wind comes off the water, like the whole lake is exhaling. I didn't cry. I was too far past crying. I thought about every sacrifice I'd ever made that Tyler didn't know about. The vacation I never took. The truck I never replaced. The doctor's appointment I skipped for 3 years because I couldn't afford both Tyler's tuition top-up and my own health insurance at the same time. I thought about the Christmas he was 12, and I wrapped second-hand books in the paper from last year's gifts and told him they were collector's editions. He believed me and was so excited. I thought about all of it. And then I thought, he called me an embarrassment. Look, I've been called worse things on a job site, so I didn't collapse. But there's a specific kind of wound that comes from your own child. It doesn't bleed out. It just sits there, deep and quiet, and poisons everything slowly. I went back inside, poured a glass of water, didn't sleep. The next morning, my phone rang. Unknown number, Chicago area code. I almost didn't pick up. I figured it was spam, which, as it turns out, is a reasonable assumption for most calls I get. I'm on every marketing list known to mankind. But I picked up. James Kowalski? Yeah. My name is Gordon Whitmore. I'm Chelsea's father. Every muscle in my body went still. I know who you are, he said. I know what Tyler told us. And I know that isn't true. I didn't say anything. I didn't trust my voice yet. I need you at this wedding, James. Not for Tyler, for me. I can explain everything when you get here, but I need you to trust me, and I need you to come. Can you do that? There are moments in life where something shifts, and you can feel it shift, like the ground has been rearranged under you while you were standing still. I asked him one question. Why? He was quiet for a second. Because I owe you a debt that's 32 years overdue, he said. And because my daughter deserves to know who she's really marrying. That second part stopped me cold. I asked him what he meant. Come to Chicago, he said. I'll tell you everything. I promise you, James. By the time this weekend is over, everyone in that room will know exactly who you are. There was something in his voice. Not pity, not charity. Something older than that. Something that sounded like a man who had been carrying something heavy for a very long time and had finally decided to put it down. I stood in my kitchen with the phone pressed to my ear and stared at the photo I keep on the refrigerator. It's from Tyler's college graduation. He's got his cap slightly crooked and he's grinning that big, unguarded grin he used to have before he learned to smile carefully. My arm is around him. I look tired and proud and like I could have stood in that moment forever. I almost said no. Part of me wanted to say no, not out of cowardice, but because I was raised to believe that dignity means knowing when to walk away. But the other part of me, the part that drove that boy to 3 emergency rooms and coached his little league team and ate canned soup for 6 straight months so he could have a new winter coat, that part of me wasn't done yet. I'll be there, I said. I drove 9 hours to Chicago instead of flying, because old habits die hard, and also, I needed the time to think. The UP 535, straight down through Wisconsin, Lake Superior, disappearing behind me in the rearview mirror. I stopped at a Walmart outside of Green Bay and bought a suit. Navy blue, off the rack, $43 on clearance. The kid at the register told me I looked sharp. He was maybe 19 and probably said that to everyone, but it landed anyway. I hung it in the back seat and kept driving. Here's what I kept turning over in my head for 9 hours. Gordon Whitmore, Chelsea's father, real estate magnate. I'd never heard that name before in my life. He knew my name. He knew where I was from. He said he owed me a debt. 32 years ago, I was 26 years old and working the ore docks in Duluth. I've pulled men out of bad situations more times than I can count. Dock collapses, equipment failures. That's just the job. You don't keep score. You don't expect anything back. But someone had been keeping score. And the fact that Gordon Whitmore's daughter was about to marry my son, who had told everyone I was dead, and Gordon was the one calling me, not Tyler, told me that whatever was about to happen in that hotel had been building towards something for a long time. I pulled into Chicago just after 10 at night. The skyline was lit up over Lake Michigan, and I thought about Duluth and how even though it was a different lake, the water somehow looked the same in the dark. I found my hotel. A modest place Gordon had apparently booked and paid for, which I only discovered when the front desk said my card wasn't needed. I stood there, with my Walmart suit on a hanger, feeling like a man who had just walked into the wrong movie and was too stubborn to leave. I called Gordon, told him I'd arrived. "Get some sleep," he said. "Tomorrow, everything changes." I didn't sleep. I lay on top of the hotel comforter in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to Chicago traffic below, and I thought about Tyler's text. "You'll embarrass us. Don't come." And then I thought about what Gordon said. "By the time this weekend is over, everyone in that room will know exactly who you are." I didn't know what tomorrow would bring. I didn't know what Gordon Whitmore had planned or what 32-year-old debt he thought he owed me. I didn't know what my son's face was going to look like when I walked through those doors. But I knew one thing. I was going to that wedding. And I wasn't walking in with my head down. I woke up at 5 in the morning, because that's what 30 years of dock shifts does to a man. Your body doesn't care that you're retired. Your body doesn't care that you're in a Chicago hotel room with blackout curtains and a bed softer than anything you've ever owned. 5 o'clock comes, and your eyes open, and that's just how it is. The wedding wasn't until 4 in the afternoon. 11 hours to sit with my own thoughts. 11 hours to talk myself into this or out of it, about 47 times. I showered, put on the Walmart suit, looked at myself in the bathroom mirror for a long time. Not bad for a dead man. That thought made me laugh. A short, bitter sound that echoed off the tile. Around 9, my phone buzzed. "Gordon, breakfast? There's a diner 2 blocks from your hotel. We need to talk before this afternoon." 20 minutes later, I was sitting across from Gordon Whitmore in a vinyl booth at a place called Lucky's. He was already there when I arrived. Silver hair, expensive watch, tailored coat draped over the seat beside him. He looked like money. But when he stood up to shake my hand, there was something in his grip that felt familiar. Calloused, strong, not the handshake of a man who'd always been rich. "James," he said, "you look exactly the same." I didn't recognize him. I told him that straight. He smiled. "I didn't expect you to. I've changed quite a bit. Sit down. Let me tell you a story." The waitress came. I ordered coffee. Gordon ordered the same. Neither of us touched the menus. 32 years ago, Gordon said, my name wasn't Gordon Whitmore. It was Gary Whitman. I was 24 years old, broke, running from gambling debts that were going to get me killed if I didn't disappear. I ended up in Duluth because it was far enough from Detroit that I figured nobody would find me there. I stared at him. Gary Whitman. The name floated up from somewhere deep. A face came with it. Younger, thinner, scared eyes. You worked the docks, I said slowly. 6 months, he said, until the collapse. And then I remembered. November of 1993. Section 12 of the ore dock. Support beam failure during a night shift. 3 men were working that section when it came down. 2 of them died instantly. The third one was pinned under debris, screaming, while the whole structure groaned like it was about to finish the job. I was the one who went in. Everyone else was yelling at me to wait for rescue crews. I didn't wait. I crawled through twisted metal and pulled that man out by his arms, while the dock shifted and groaned above us. I remember his face, covered in blood and dust, eyes wide with terror. I remember dragging him across the concrete while my shoulder screamed and my lungs burned. I spent 3 months in the hospital after that. Torn rotator cuff, cracked ribs, collapsed lung. Workers' comp covered most of it. The company gave me a plaque. I never saw that man again. Until now. You, I said. Gordon nodded. Me. We sat there for a moment. The diner sounds filled the silence. Clattering dishes. A cook shouting orders. Some song from the 80s playing too quietly to identify. I left Duluth a week after I got out of the hospital, Gordon said. Changed my name, moved to Chicago, got lucky in real estate during the 90s boom, built everything you see now from nothing. He paused. But I never forgot you, James. I never forgot that you went into that collapse when nobody else would. I never forgot that you almost died saving a stranger. I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. When Chelsea told me she was engaged, Gordon continued, I did what any father does. I had Tyler investigated. Background check. The usual. I wanted to make sure she wasn't marrying someone with secrets. His jaw tightened. What I found was worse than secrets. My stomach dropped. James, your son has been lying to my daughter since the day they met. He told her his father was dead. He told her he grew up in Minneapolis, not Duluth. He invented a completely different childhood to match what he thought she wanted. I knew some of this. The dead father part I'd discovered on my own, but hearing it laid out by a stranger still hit like a fist. There's more, Gordon said. Of course there was. Tyler has been cheating on Chelsea for the past 8 months. A woman named Vanessa, Chelsea's college roommate. 8 months. He's also in significant debt. Credit cards mostly. He's been buying gifts for Vanessa, taking her on trips, using money he doesn't have. 2 weeks ago, he pressured Chelsea to add his name to her trust fund before the wedding. She thought it was romantic. Joint finances. Building a life together. Gordon's voice was steady, but his eyes were not. I recorded a conversation between Tyler and his groomsmen at the rehearsal dinner last night. Do you want to know what he said about my daughter? I didn't. And I did. I nodded. He called her naive, but useful. He said he was marrying up, and that once he had access to her money, he could live the life he actually deserved. The coffee in front of me had gone cold. I hadn't touched it. Naive, but useful. That was my son. That was what my son had become. I don't want to just stop this wedding, Gordon said. If I expose Tyler privately, Chelsea will be devastated, but she'll recover. She'll blame me for interfering. She might even go back to him out of spite. That's not good enough. He leaned forward. I want everyone to see who he really is. I want his mask to come off in front of 300 people who think he's charming and successful and trustworthy. I want my daughter to see the truth with her own eyes, in a way she can never unsee or explain away. I understood what he was saying. I understood the logic. But there was something else underneath his words, something personal. This isn't just about Chelsea, I said. Gordon paused. Then he exhaled. No, it's not. He looked out the window at Chicago traffic sliding by. I spent 32 years building a life based on a second chance you gave me. Every building with my name on it, every dollar I've made, every good thing I've done. It all started because you pulled me out of that wreckage when you didn't have to. He looked back at me. And your son buried you. He told people you were dead so he could pretend to be something he's not. He took the man who saved my life and erased him. His voice dropped. That's personal, James. That's very personal. I sat with that for a moment. Here was this man I'd saved 3 decades ago, rich beyond anything I could imagine, asking me to help him destroy my own son's wedding. And the thing that scared me most wasn't the destruction, it was how much I wanted it. Is that wrong? I didn't know anymore. What exactly do you need me to do? I asked. Gordon smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a man about to lay out a battlefield. I need you to walk into that reception. That's all. Just show up. Tyler doesn't know you're coming. He told security not to admit you, but I've already handled that. You're on my guest list, personally. And then I introduce you, properly. I tell everyone in that room who you really are and what you did for me. And then I let Tyler try to explain why he told everyone his hero father was dead. My heart was pounding. What about the rest? The cheating, the debt, the recordings? That comes after. Once his credibility is already cracked, I'll finish it. His mistress will be in the room. I invited her personally, told her Tyler was having second thoughts and wanted her there. She believed it because she wanted to believe it. The mistress in the room. You've thought this through, I said. For 3 weeks, Gordon said. Every detail. I stared at my cold coffee. 30 years of loving my son. 30 years of sacrifice and pride and hope. 30 years of believing that if I just kept showing up, kept being steady, kept being there, he would eventually find his way back to me. And now I was sitting in a Chicago diner, planning the systematic destruction of his wedding. This is revenge. I knew that. I wasn't pretending otherwise. But was it wrong? Tyler had cheated on his fiancée. Tyler had lied about who he was. Tyler had used Chelsea for her money. Tyler had told the world his father was dead. Tyler had texted me that my dead wife would understand why he was ashamed of me. At what point does revenge stop being petty and start being justice? I'll do it, I said. Gordon nodded. I know you will. We finished our coffee in silence. The hours crawled by after that. I went back to my hotel room and sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall. I thought about Tyler at 7 years old, crying in his sleep. I thought about Tyler at 12, handing me a Father's Day card he'd made at school with too much glitter. I thought about Tyler at 18, waving goodbye from his dorm room window. Where did that boy go? I didn't have an answer. At 3:30, I called a cab, put on my jacket, checked my reflection one more time. You look like a man going to a funeral. Maybe I was. The Drake Hotel was everything I expected and nothing I belonged to. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, waiters in white gloves, people who moved like they'd never questioned whether they deserved to be anywhere. I gave my name at the reception desk. The woman checked her list, smiled, and directed me toward the main ballroom. The ceremony was already over. Tyler and Chelsea were officially married, somewhere in a room I hadn't been invited to witness. The reception was just beginning. 300 guests mingling, laughing, clinking glasses. I stood in the doorway. The room was massive. Round tables with white linens, towering flower arrangements, a string quartet playing something soft in the corner. Everything was beautiful and expensive and completely foreign to me. And then I saw him. Tyler, my son. He was standing near the head table, shaking hands with an older couple, laughing at something they said. He was wearing a tuxedo that probably cost more than my truck. His hair was perfect. His smile was perfect. Everything about him was polished and controlled and calculated. He hadn't seen me yet. I took a breath, stepped into the room. Gordon caught my eye from across the ballroom. He was seated at the head table beside Chelsea. He gave me the slightest nod. Here we go. I walked forward, one step at a time. The crowd parted, without really noticing me. I was invisible here, a nobody in a cheap suit. Not for long. Tyler finished his conversation, turned toward the bar. His eyes swept the room casually, the way you do when you're making sure everything is perfect. And then his eyes found me. I watched his face change. It happened in stages. Confusion first, then recognition, then something I'd never seen on my son's face before. Fear. He went pale, actually pale, like the blood had drained straight out of him. He started walking toward me, fast, his jaw tight. "What are you doing here?" His voice was low, controlled, but I could hear the panic underneath. I didn't answer. "I told you not to come." He grabbed my arm, tried to steer me toward the exit. "You need to leave, right now. I'll call security." "No need," I said quietly. "I'm on the guest list." Tyler froze. "What?" Before I could answer, a voice rang out across the ballroom. "Everyone, if I could have your attention, please." Gordon Whitmore was standing, his wine glass raised. The room fell silent instantly. Tyler's grip on my arm tightened. "I'd like to propose a toast," Gordon said. "But first, I'd like to introduce someone very special, a man I owe my life to. A man who, 32 years ago, crawled into a collapsing ore dock in Duluth, Minnesota, and pulled me out with his bare hands while everyone else stood back. 300 faces turned toward me. Ladies and gentlemen, this is James Kowalski, an ironworker, a hero, and—" Gordon paused, looked directly at Tyler, Tyler's father. The murmurs started immediately. Chelsea was staring at Tyler, her face confused. "Tyler," she said slowly, "you told me your father was dead." The room went absolutely still. And Tyler, my son, looked at me with an expression I will remember until the day I actually die. It wasn't shame. It wasn't regret. It was hatred. Tyler dropped my arm like it was burning him. 300 people staring. The string quartet had stopped playing. Somewhere near the back of the room, a champagne glass clinked against a table, and the sound was deafening in the silence. Chelsea stood up from the head table. Her wedding dress rustled. Her face was pale. "Tyler," she said again, "what is he talking about?" "Say something, son. Say anything. Lie your way out of it, like you always do." But Tyler wasn't looking at Chelsea. He was looking at me. And what I saw in his eyes made my chest ache in a way I wasn't prepared for. He wasn't scared anymore. He was furious. "This man is mentally ill," Tyler said loudly, projecting, playing to the crowd. "He was a friend of my mother's. After she died, he became obsessed with our family. He's been stalking me for years. He genuinely believes he's my father." There it is. I almost laughed. Almost. The audacity of it. The sheer shamelessness. My own son, standing in front of 300 witnesses, calling me a delusional stalker. Gordon hadn't moved. He was watching Tyler with an expression I recognized. It was the look of a man who had expected exactly this. "Tyler," Gordon said calmly, "I've seen your birth certificate. James Kowalski is listed as your father." The murmurs grew louder. Tyler's jaw tightened. "Forged. He's been doing this for years. It's pathetic, really. I tried to get a restraining order, but—" "I also have photographs," Gordon continued, "from your high school graduation, your college move-in day, your mother's funeral. Would you like me to show them? Chelsea was shaking now. I could see it from across the room, her hands trembling at her sides. Her eyes moving between Tyler and me like she was watching a car crash in slow motion. "Dad," she whispered, "what is going on?" "The truth, sweetheart," Gordon said. "That's what's going on." Tyler changed tactics. He stepped toward Gordon, hands raised, voice softening. The charming voice, the reasonable voice, the voice he probably used in boardrooms to close deals. "Gordon, I don't know what this man told you, but he's manipulative. He's been harassing me for years. I didn't want to burden Chelsea with it. I was trying to protect her." Protect her. My hands were shaking now, not from fear, from something else entirely. "You were trying to protect her," I said. Everyone looked at me. I hadn't planned to speak yet, but the words came anyway. "Is that why you texted me 3 days ago, telling me not to come? Is that why you said I would embarrass you? Is that why you said—" I had to stop. Breathe. "Is that why you said your mother would understand?" Chelsea's hand flew to her mouth. "His mother," Gordon said quietly, "died when Tyler was 7 years old. Carol Kowalski, ovarian cancer. James raised Tyler alone after that. Worked double shifts at the taconite plant so Tyler could go to college. Drove him to Northwestern in a truck that was already 15 years old. The room was so quiet, I could hear my own heartbeat. James has visited Carol's grave every Sunday for 20 years, Gordon continued. He brings sunflowers, her favorite." Chelsea was crying now, silent tears running down her face. Tyler's mask was cracking. I could see it. Little fissures appearing around his eyes, his mouth, the composed facade starting to splinter. "This is insane," Tyler said, but his voice had lost its confidence. "Chelsea, baby, you can't believe. I want to see the pictures," Chelsea said. Her voice was steady, eerily steady, like someone who had already made a decision and was just collecting evidence. Gordon pulled out his phone, walked toward his daughter, showed her the screen. I knew what she was seeing. Photos I'd sent to Gordon that morning. Tyler at 6, sitting on my shoulders at the Duluth Pier. Tyler at 12, holding up a fish he'd caught on Lake Superior. Tyler at 18, standing between me and Carol's grave on the day before he left for college. That last one hurt to share. It was supposed to be private. Just me and my boy saying goodbye to his mother before he started his new life. But some things can't stay private anymore. Chelsea scrolled through the photos slowly. Her tears kept coming. When she finally looked up, she didn't look at Tyler. She looked at me. "Mr. Kowalski," she said, "I am so sorry." Those 4 words hit me harder than anything Tyler had ever said. She believes me. A stranger believes me over my own son. "Chelsea, stop," Tyler said. He reached for her arm. She pulled back like he'd burned her. "Don't touch me." The room shifted. You could feel it. The energy changed. 300 people who had been confused were now angry. You could see it in their faces, the tightened jaws, the narrowed eyes. They were looking at Tyler the way you look at something you've suddenly realized is rotten. "There's more," Gordon said. Tyler's face went gray. "Here it comes." Over the past 3 weeks, I've had Tyler investigated thoroughly. What I found was illuminating. Gordon paused, letting the tension build. Tyler has been cheating on my daughter for 8 months. Gasps. Actual gasps. Like a movie. Her name is Vanessa Burke, Chelsea's former college roommate. Chelsea made a sound. A small, broken sound that I will never forget. "That's a lie," Tyler said desperately. "Gordon, I don't know who told you that, but Vanessa is here," Gordon said. "I invited her personally." The room erupted, heads turning, people craning to see. And then I saw her, a young woman near the back of the room. Dark hair, red dress. She looked terrified. "Vanessa," Gordon called out. Would you like to tell Chelsea how many times you and Tyler have been together since their engagement? The woman's face crumbled. She shook her head, started backing toward the door. 17 times, Gordon said. I have hotel receipts, text messages, photos. Tyler was fully panicking now, sweat on his forehead, his perfect hair starting to come undone. This is a setup, he said. Gordon, you're trying to destroy me. I don't know why, but this is... You destroyed yourself, Gordon said. I'm just showing everyone the rubble. Chelsea ripped the veil off her head, threw it on the ground. 8 months, she whispered. 8 months. And you let me plan this wedding. You let me stand in that church. You let me say those vows. Chelsea, baby, please, don't call me that. Her voice cracked. Don't you ever call me that again. She pulled off her engagement ring. The diamond caught the chandelier light as it flew through the air. It hit Tyler's chest and bounced onto the floor. Nobody moved to pick it up. There's one more thing, Gordon said. God, there's more? I didn't know about this part. Gordon hadn't told me. I have a recording from last night's rehearsal dinner. A conversation between Tyler and his groomsmen. Would anyone like to hear what Tyler thinks about his bride? Gordon, don't, Tyler said, begging now, actually begging. Gordon pressed play. Tyler's voice filled the room, clear as day. She's naive, but useful, honestly. Once I'm on the trust fund, I can actually start living the life I deserve. Chelsea's sweet, but she's not exactly the sharpest tool. She'll believe whatever I tell her. Laughter from the groomsmen. What about her dad? One of them asked. Gordon's old money. Old money means old guilt. He'll write checks to keep Chelsea happy. And Chelsea's happiness is my happiness now, right? More laughter. The recording stopped. The silence that followed was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. Chelsea was staring at Tyler like she'd never seen him before. Which, in a way, she hadn't. Naive but useful, she repeated quietly. Tyler opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. And then, finally, he turned to me. Here it comes. The real Tyler, the one underneath all the polish. This is your fault, he said. His voice was low, venomous. You couldn't just stay away. You couldn't just let me have this. You had to ruin everything. I looked at my son, really looked at him, saw the anger in his eyes, the entitlement, the absolute certainty that he was the victim here. When did you become this? I didn't ruin anything, I said quietly. I just showed up. That's all I did. I showed up, like I always have. You were supposed to stay gone, Tyler spat. You were supposed to take the hint. I built a new life, a better life, and you weren't part of it. Why couldn't you just accept that? Because you're my son. 3 words, simple, true. Tyler laughed, an ugly sound. I stopped being your son the day I realized you had nothing to offer me. You're a nobody, Dad. A washed-up iron worker with a rusted truck and a dead wife. I wanted more. I deserved more. The room was silent. Everyone listening. Everyone watching. You deserved more, I repeated. Yes. I nodded slowly. Then I reached into my jacket pocket. I brought something for you. Tyler's eyes narrowed, suspicious. I pulled out a stack of envelopes, worn, yellowed, some of them torn at the edges. These are letters, I said. Every Christmas, every birthday, every Father's Day for the past 12 years, I wrote to you. Every single one. I told you about the weather in Duluth, about the fish I caught, about the new family that moved in next door. Small things, stupid things, things I wanted to share with my son. Tyler said nothing. Every single letter came back, I said. Return to sender. No such person at this address. I held up one of the envelopes, showed the room the handwriting on the front. Tyler's handwriting. You sent them back, I said. Every single one, for 12 years. I walked to Chelsea, handed her the stack. I want you to have these, I said, so you know who you almost married. She took them, looked down at the pile, then looked up at me, with tears streaming down her face. Thank you, she whispered. I nodded. Then I turned to Tyler one last time. You were my whole world, I said. After your mother died, you were everything I had. I would have done anything for you. Anything. My voice cracked. I let it. But you don't get to call me Dad anymore. You don't get to use your mother's memory against me. You don't get to pretend I'm dead while I'm still standing here breathing. I stepped closer. I'm not embarrassed of who I am. I'm not ashamed of my truck, or my job, or my life. The only thing I'm ashamed of is that I raised a man who could look at everything I gave him and call it nothing. Tyler's face twisted. For a moment, I thought he might cry, but he didn't. He just stood there, hollow and exposed, while 300 people watched his entire life collapse. Gordon stepped forward. I'd like to announce a donation, he said. $500,000 to the Duluth Iron Workers Widows and Children Fund, in honor of James Kowalski, a real man. Applause. Actual applause. For me. I didn't know what to do with it, so I just nodded. Chelsea walked to me, her wedding dress dragging on the floor. She hugged me, a stranger, hugging me like I was family. I'm sorry, she whispered again. I'm so sorry he did this to you. I patted her back gently. You'll be okay, I said. You're stronger than you think. She pulled away, wiped her eyes, then turned to Tyler with a look that could freeze Lake Superior solid. We're done, she said. My lawyers will be in touch. She walked out. Her mother followed, then her friends, then, slowly, everyone else. A mass exodus. Leaving Tyler standing alone in the middle of a reception hall that had been designed for his triumph. I was the last to go. At the door, I paused, looked back. Tyler was staring at the floor, his shoulders slumped, his perfect life in ruins around him. I should feel satisfied. I should feel vindicated. But I just felt tired. Tyler, I said. He didn't look up. When you're ready to be my son again, you know where to find me. I walked out into the Chicago evening. Lake Michigan was somewhere beyond the buildings, hidden by steel and glass, but I could feel it. The water, the weight of it. Gordon caught up with me on the sidewalk. James, he said, thank you. I shook my head. Don't thank me. I didn't do this for revenge. Then why? I thought about it, about Carol, about Tyler, at 7 years old, crying for his mother, about all those years of showing up over and over, believing that love was enough. Because the truth matters, I said finally, and because my wife deserved better than to have her memory used against me. Gordon nodded. He understood. I got in my truck, started the engine. That old familiar rattle. 9 hours back to Duluth. 9 hours to think about everything that had happened. But somewhere around Milwaukee, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I pulled over, opened it. It was from Chelsea. He doesn't deserve you, but I hope someday he finds his way back. Thank you for raising a man I thought I loved. Maybe the boy you raised is still in there somewhere. I sat there for a long time, reading it over and over. Maybe the boy I raised is still in there. Maybe. I put the phone away, pulled back onto the highway. Lake Superior was waiting. Carol was waiting. Sunday was coming, and I had sunflowers to bring. The rest would sort itself out, or it wouldn't. Either way, I was done being invisible. I was done being dead. And whatever happened next, I was going to face it the same way I'd faced everything else in my life, by showing up.